On the edge of Nagoya, there's a town that has been making dyed cloth for 400 years. But what makes this town special isn't the color of the dye. It's the way they tie it. Some artists and craftspeople come all the way from abroad just to learn that technique. The town is called Arimatsu. Today I'm going to walk around. I've arrived at Arimatsu Station, just about 20 minutes from Nagoya. There's a big map at the station, written in English too. Let me take it slow. A single road, curving gently. This was once the Tokaido, the most important highway in old Japan, connecting Edo and Kyoto. And this town sits right along it. No power poles. No wires. What lines the street are the old merchant houses, where shibori was once sold. Look closely, house by house. It's fascinating. The eaves are very deep. A way to keep the dyed cloth out of the harsh sun, they say. On the ground floor, thin wooden bars stand in a row. Renji-goshi, a lattice. Hard to see in from outside, but easy to watch the street from within. On the second floor, a small latticed window. It's called a mushiko mado. And this old gas lamp. It dates back to the Meiji era, they say. The walls are thick, packed hard with plaster. Nurigome Zukuri, built to protect the house from fire. The wisdom of merchants who feared fire above all else. Along the street, there's a building like this one. Inside, there's a big festival float, a great cart that's pulled through the town at the autumn festival. This town was born more than 400 years ago. A small settlement built along the Tokaido. The land was poor for farming, so people looked for other work. And what they found was the craft of tying cloth to create patterns. Travelers bought them here and carried them home. That's how Arimatsu Shibori began. Or so the story is told here. So what is the shibori, really? I step into the shibori hall in the middle of town. The ground floor is a shop. The second floor, a museum, works, historical materials, and you can even watch a craftsman at work. Let's head up to the second floor. When you hear Arimatsu Shibori, you might picture the color indigo. Lately, that indigo is also called Japan blue. But what's truly remarkable about this town isn't the color. It's how they tie the cloth. The idea is simple. You bind plain cloth with thread, dye it, then untie it. Only the bound parts stay undyed, and that becomes the pattern. Arashi. Miura. Seka. Tegumo. Mokume. makiage, kanoko. There are more than 100 techniques. That's why the world took notice of this town. In 1992, Arimatsu held the very first International Shibori Symposium. Shibori. The word has become a global one now. The museum also holds old documents and paintings about Shibori. So let's see how the cloth is actually tied. One point at a time. Binding the fabric with thread. The way it's tied is what decides the pattern. No two patterns are ever the same. All of it by hand. Even with the same technique, the result changes from person to person. Each piece carries that person's character, the craftsman told me. Shibori isn't a thing of the past. This craft is still alive today. Some craftspeople and artists come from abroad, just to learn this way of tying. And the old technique is taking on new forms, from Nagoya out into the world. Some Shibori lives on as fashion. These days, dyeing with real indigo is rare, I'm told. Natural indigo is expensive. Most of it is dyed with chemical dyes now. And yet, the handwork of tying the cloth hasn't changed in 400 years. This is the cloth, all tied up. Much stiffer than it looks. That's how they make sure those parts never take the dye. This suit of armor too was made using Shibori dyeing, they say. By the way, the site of the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600 is just nearby. On the ground floor, Shibori products are actually for sale. This is a shop called Suzusan. The owner is a craftsman himself. Inside you can buy Shibori products, the tools, even books about Shibori. The shop is being renovated right now, so this is a temporary space, they told me. And still, it has such a lovely feel to it. They also hold workshops, and sometimes artists and craftspeople from abroad come here to learn. I bought one myself, a small tanugi, a hand towel. Its pattern was born from someone tying the cloth one point at a time. 400 years of craft, now in my hands. One last place. On the edge of town there's a small shrine. Arimatsu Tenmansha. A place that has watched over this town for a long, long time. To reach it, a long stone stairway was waiting. Banners sway in the wind. Step by step, I climb. At last, I reach the main hall. I put my hands together and give my thanks for being able to film here today without trouble. This too was a beautiful place. If you've come this far, do climb up and see it. Just 20 minutes from Nagoya. But here, a different kind of time is flowing. It's not a flashy tourist spot, but Arimatsu is something you won't find anywhere else. I think it's worth a visit.